Being powerful is a bit like being ladylike. So if you have to say you are, you probably ain't. So I think I like America most of all on the days when people are not going around shouting, USA, USA, we're number one, we're the greatest. I prefer the days when they don't do that, when they're probably most to be admired.
What is it that makes us boast about our greatness and belittle others? What is it that keeps us from ascending beyond the immediate? I cannot help but wonder what Hitchens would say today. It is a thought that somewhat haunts me as I stumble through communicating a similar belief of many before me, that we are brothers and sisters of the human race, with core values shared among us, which are hidden in the labels and divisions we create.
And if you understand freedom, it's based on tolerance and nonviolence. So if it's tolerance, it should be bringing all kinds of people together, and that's following our Constitution. We shouldn't be fighting among ourselves, because we shouldn't be fighting in Washington. If we all take the same oath of office, where does the fight come from? Somebody is messing up somewhere.
Libertarians proclaim reducing government interference because all Americans should be free to live their lives and pursue their interests as they see fit, as long as they do no harm to another. That peaceful, honest people should decide for themselves how to live their lives without fear of criminal penalties, and that the government's responsibility, if any, should be protecting its citizens from force and fraud.
The ruling class has always taught and trained you to believe it to be your patriotic duty to go to war and to have yourself slaughtered at their command.
The socialist soapbox calls for a classless society with communal ownership and perspective that is driven to enhance freedom, justice, and solidarity towards a goal of peace. Peace, of course, includes police abolishment, which I must say is highly unlikely to ever be a reality, but it is the only ethical goal.
Right? Forget about effectiveness or not effectiveness. You don't get to confiscate my money just because you and your friends vote to take it.
The deliberate pragmatism of conservative thought espouses the value of moral order and building off the best of the past with long-term goals that are achieved mainly through community and family with an ideally restrained and fiscally prudent government.
People are born to be free, and that their basic instinct is the desire to free themselves from coercion, authority, and oppression.
The ideal liberal is said to believe in that natural goodness of human beings and the intrinsic value of individual liberty, that to have an honorable society, we must have moral equality across sex, race, birth origin, religion, gender, class, wealth, etc., which is achieved through nonviolent modifications of institutions.
With certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
America, America, America. Cannot help but believe we have steered ourselves quite off course. We are now reading Chapter 7 of Crimes and Punishments, The Obscurity of Laws. The most common interaction I have personally experienced with the obscurity of laws is likely to be the same for you. This was true before I was police, when I was police, and after being police. It is in operating a vehicle in the United States. Once it became my profession to understand vehicle law, I looked into it for the first time, and from that point on, I was always humored at the idea of a driver asking, "What are you pulling me over for?" "I don't know. Which one do you want to use? I followed you for about a mile, so I'm sure there's at least 10 violations in that time." It is absolutely impossible to operate a vehicle legally. Every cop can pull over any car legally, without question. The complexity of the law and the extent of violations to justify a stop is largely obscure to the citizenry. Looking at policing from the understanding that everyone is committing violations, evaluate how you feel about the data that is known. In trying to keep everything referenced to easily findable items, I am suggesting two different articles. First is what the data really says about police and racial bias, by Kia Makarishi in Vanity Fair, which summarizes and links 18 academic studies, legal rulings, and media investigations. The second article is San Jose Police Department Traffic and Pedestrian Stop Study by the Center for Law and Human Behavior at the University of Texas at El Paso. In this report, I ask that you focus on what is really being said behind the rather obvious bias and framing. Right after we go over a little bit more about what the crimes and punishment in the 21st century essays are, we will get to the obscurity of laws. Like most cops, the emotions felt when pinning the badge on my uniform for the first time was a source of immense pride, but also a shocking reality to the complication of performing a duty under the weight of such power and responsibility. The callousness of veterans cops and the braggadocious masculinity of the streets are immature expressions of the generations of trauma enacted on our brothers and sisters from a system oppressing us all. My internal fights with policing, whistleblowing, scholarly endeavors, reform efforts, and politics have failed in exhausting fashion.
And what I'm trying to say is that we are looking at people who are doing nothing new, and if we focus on the actions, then we can fix the things for next time. Because when you focus on people, we end up thinking we can chop the head off, they put a new person in and something will change. But if we don't focus on the methodologies and the institutions, then we will be totally missing
somebody, put them in a prison cell, do the paperwork, go back out, and do it again. So what we really need is to change the incentives and disincentives so that no matter what the role, we're still going towards that objective that actually serves you.
More occupation, more vehicles, if your answer continues to be violent, because we have to understand that everything about policing is inherently violent. I have come in there with authority and told you what you will do.
I believe one of the reasons behind my struggles is that I had not laid out a consistent and intertwined philosophy of what in the hell I was trying to say. For the philosophical foundations of crime and punishment to be ushered into the 21st century, a reimagination of our institutions is necessary. Building off the famous works of Cesare Beccaria, I construct those pathways to the Enlightenment period of justice. Free will, sanctuary cities, gun control, eyewitness testimony, incarceration, and more must all work together for a prosperous society. Learning these lessons has been a brutal journey for me, and is unlikely to be an easy one for you, but it is one that we owe to the future, to make a safer world for our children to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Crimes and Punishments in the 21st Century by yours truly, Michael Wood, is most conveniently ordered from the evil empire Amazon, because we are in that 21st century after all. For the enhanced and expanded audiobook, check out Audible. In the meantime, the philosophical half of Crime and Punishments, all 40-some chapters and then some, is being presented as a free podcast from iMember Media at imembermedia.com and will be available on all major platforms and direct from the publisher. Pause the video or see the links in the notes and prepare for the challenge and adventure of self-critical thought. Chapter 7. The Obscurity of Laws. The interpretation of laws outside of legislation is a path to tyranny, and this extends to one of the byproducts of interpretation, obscurity. Vagueness can get into the law in a myriad of ways and demands vigilant monitoring. The horrors of overcriminalization and writing in a language or legalese not of the people are contemporary examples. In 21st century United States of America, the effort has exceeded the warnings, and the laws are written in a language unknown even to the legislators who passed them. When legislation is understood by few, then those few are free to rule as they choose, for their perspective becomes the only one valid to a population ignorant of the meaning of the law. Interpretation makes tyrants of magistrates. Ambiguity is every bit as corrosive. The complexity of language, over-legislation, and antiquity makes the law secret in meaning. When meanings are obscure, the law becomes the prejudices and biases of select individuals. Under the umbrella of law and the codification of a society that claims to empower the people, the obscurity of law enables the elite to tyranny. Post-September 11, 2001, the United States Patriot Act was passed with a vague understanding of implications, and the 2,300 pages of the Affordable Care Act were utterly unknown to but a handful of legislators whom read, let alone understood. These are not concerns of the distant past. The only way to prevent this danger is to accept a legacy of reevaluation. A foundational legacy must be a cyclical framework of fluid adaptation and improvement, not the rules and traditions of the society at that time. The amendment concept and live and document process of the U.S. Constitution was an attempt at preserving a framework which has fallen short. Much of its failures coming through the increasing obscurity of laws and a language unknown to the people. Tune in to the next episode as we explore the proportion between violations and amends. The acceptance of revenge and punishment as the amends for violations is greatly disproportional, provides no reparation, and further stresses the societal fabric. Should one's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness be the payment for your car being damaged? Really?